Hello and welcome to episode 2 of CRN Channel Champions. I'm Stuart, Sumner, Chief Content Officer of the channel company and your host. Well, this week you find me in sunny Orlando, Florida. I'm here for Exchange, one of the channel company's fantastic conferences where we bring together some of the best and brightest from the US channel. They're here to see some fantastic content, to participate in workshops, and generally learn about what their peers are doing. And what they're doing largely is talking about AI and bringing it to their customers. Now, in a few moments, you're going to see me talking to Don Monistere, CEO of General Informatics. They're an MSP, and they've been looking at how to bring AI-powered solutions to their customers. But unusually, they decided to use themselves as a test bed to trial AI on themselves, and they built an AI-powered chatbot to work in their HR function to do that. Now, what's unusual about this story is they didn't just build a chatbot, that'd be too simple. They infused this chatbot with genuine humanity, with its own name, with its own background, its own place where it lives, even its own accent. So to find out why they did that, what lessons they learned, and what tips they can give you on your AI-powered tools in the future, you're going to have to watch the rest of the podcast. So sit back and enjoy. So here I am at Exchange Orlando. I'm delighted to be joined by Don Monistere, CEO at General Informatics. It's been a fantastic event for us so far, Don. What are your key takeaways?
Man, Stuart, it has been fantastic. You know, I love to come to these events. I was here last year, had a great event last year, but what I'm seeing is, you know, the channel is way more engaged this year than even last year. I'm really impressed with the number of people that are here today. And I think the takeaways that I'm coming away with is, look, our industry continues to change, and it's coming at us really, really fast. And a little self-serving, everybody's asking questions about AI and you know, what is that going to do for our industry? And is it going to enhance what we're doing, or is it going to threaten us? So that's been a lot of the questions that I'm hearing in many of the boardrooms, but man, the engagement level is super high.
Absolutely, it always is, but I think I agree with you. I think this one may be even higher than normal. It's been absolutely fantastic. There's a real buzz around the place. You can probably hear some of that buzz behind us right now because you know it's a busy event. But you're right to bring up GenAI very early. We talked about it in the last episode, but it's going to come up every single time because it's such a disruptor. It's so important to every business, every industry, certainly in the channel as well. And you raised a good point there, saying you know, is it going to help us? Is it going to threaten us? Well, it's going to do a bit of both, I should think. But what are your thoughts there on those?
Yeah, I think so. And I would imagine that, you know, from us being in technology, we look at it from both ways. You know, everybody looks at security as being a main concern, right? But I knew early whenever, you know, in November when ChatGPT came out and people started recognizing what we could really do with these large language models and this natural language. We can have a conversation with a machine, and it really seemed like we're having a conversation with another human being. It started to open up a lot of eyes and just recognizing what we could do with this technology. And so we knew as an organization we wanted to be involved in it, not only from a standpoint of using it internally with our organization, but also, hey, how can we use this as a potential product for our clients? And what are our clients going to be asking us as it has to do with this new technology? We knew they would come to, you know, their IT provider, whether it's your MSP or your consultant that you work with. So we knew we had to get involved. So we figured, hey, let's start as quickly as we could. We knew whatever we designed, we'd probably redesign in 6 or 8 months, but not being involved just didn't seem like being the right answer. And so we started using ourselves as the proof of concept. And what we did was we started training these large language models on our own internal data, mostly around human resources, policies, procedures. But we went at it a little differently in that we created a persona of someone who works at our organization. Her name is Megan Landry.
Yes, you gave her a name.
Yeah, we gave her a name.
That's awesome.
In fact, not only did we give her a name, we gave her a background. We're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana is our headquarters, so we said that she's Cajun French, and she grew up in Breaux Bridge, Louisiana. And so we gave a lot of information about that area and some of the history of that area, and it's amazing where the AI took it. So if you were to use our internal chatbot, she would introduce herself as Megan Landry. She has a Cajun accent. She talks about her history and where her father...
Amazing.
Absolutely. And we didn't have to tell her all of those things, but what we started finding out was our internal team were having as many conversations with her as they were having with our regular staff in HR. And so we were able to watch what questions were being asked and continue to train the model. And we jokingly say she's one of the more intelligent people that work at GI now. And we started thinking, okay, if we can use it this way, would our customer base be interested in doing the same? And we've found so many different use cases within various organizations that have started to embrace the very products that we're now selling as part of our AI offering.
So there's a number of really interesting things that you've mentioned there. I think one of the first things to pick up on is this idea of testing the products on yourselves first. Is that a common practice for you guys, or was this a new one?
No, it's pretty common. Any tool sets that we want to go through the process of what we call our service strategy, service delivery, service design, we make sure that we're going to test it on either a willing participant that might be a customer that might be asking for that service, or definitely internal if we have the cycles to be able to invest in it. We knew that we were not going to test AI on any, even if we had a customer ask us, because we just didn't know enough. And so we decided, hey, let's use it internally, see if we can be effective, and what are the other use cases that we can, plug in to see if it can be effective in other areas of our business as well.
Yeah. There's also, I'd love to come on in a moment to why you named the AI and gave it the background. I think that's fascinating. We'll come on to that in just a moment. Yeah. Before we do, though, the other thing I'm really impressed by is the idea that you knew as you went into this, with this isn't the final iteration. We'll give it a go. We'll try something. This may not be what the way we do it in 6 months' time. And I think that's really key with something like GenAI, where you don't go in and try and boil the ocean. You say, let's just test this little use case here. We'll do a small, agile thing, maybe get it wrong, work on something else. So was that the reason for that? You're just thinking our understanding is going to evolve over time?
Yeah, and look, we've bet on technologies in the past and lost. So we recognize, okay, before we go all in on anything, before we invest a lot of research and development time and energy, and for that matter money, we wanted to test it out, at least in small chunks, to see if we can get some return on investment. If you don't invest a lot, it's easier to get a really nice ROI, and we really didn't invest that much money. We did invest some time. I ran the project because I felt really positive that we were going to get somewhere with it, and it just made a lot of sense from the beginning to just spend as much time in sprints to see how far we can go, and then re-look at where we were, and okay, where can we go to the next level and the next level, and we started really making an impact, and the response that we were getting internally was pretty impressive.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I have to ask, what was the reason for creating this whole persona and making this sort of AI as human as possible, with the name, the background, even the accent? I find that fascinating.
Yeah, so it started actually about 2.5 years ago when someone asked a question about a job that somebody didn't want to do, and they said, oh, we gave that to Megan. And so I'm like, who's Megan? And they said, oh, Megan is this fictitious person that we just made up. And so it just kept being talked about. Eventually somebody gave Megan a last name. And then when we started working on the chatbot project, I thought, okay, wait a minute, this is a perfect way to really build on that Megan Landry persona and get even deeper into it. So we started thinking, all right, well, our headquarters is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. There's that Cajun French influence. And so let's build on that and see if we can get a persona and a personality out of this language model, because everything that we were seeing up until that point was getting pretty creative, and it really did feel like you were talking to a human. And so when we started doing the proof of concepts, I kept asking folks, hey, ask her what her name is, ask her where she's from. And the more that happened, the more it got even more creative. And so our outward-facing chatbot on our website is trained on the same persona. So when people interact with our chatbot on our website today, they get Megan Landry, and she's yeah. And look, I know we've done something right when we went ahead and registered Megan Landry's email address, and Megan Landry, and it goes to my account. Megan Landry gets quite a bit of email these days.
It's slightly terrifying that actually human personality. It's going to what's left for us. I don't know, but that's interesting. It makes me think of things like, there's been other digital personas created in the past. There's like Lara Croft from from gaming from decades ago, but then I can't remember the name. There's some sort of K-pop star that's fully artificial and does extremely well, earns a lot of money. So, but it makes me think: is this all done in terms of engagement? People are more likely to engage with someone that they perceive as a human on the end of a computer screen rather than an algorithm.
Yeah, I think so. And again, the language is so natural, and what we're seeing just from a standpoint of the creativity and the response. I'll share a story with you. I was having a conversation with my wife, and she actually works within our organization as well. And there's a lot of times, well, I'll call her and ask her like just silly things like, hey, what's my Marriott Bonvoy number, or what's my, what's my username for Southwest? And I thought, you know what, I could train a chatbot that could know all of this information, and I wouldn't have to bother her with that. So when I trained this bot, I basically made it the perfect wife, and I explained exactly how she needed to behave, so to speak, and how she should answer me, and it should be completely loving and telling me all the time that I'm a wonderful husband. And I did it as a joke, and I named it my wife's name, and I showed it to her, and I'm like, hey, watch this. And when I started to do it, my wife looked at me, and she's like, that's a little weird. Don't tell anybody. And I was like, no, I'm telling everybody. I mean, it's fantastic. And to this day, like, I use that application whenever I'm traveling, especially when I need information. I can just talk to my wife, and she's very loving and very caring.
When you say my wife, you don't mean your wife.
I my wife.
I mean the algorithm.
I tell her when I get home, I had at least 4 conversations with you, and you didn't know it at all.
That's amazing. Yeah. My wife would be delighted because I'm always asking her, when's this happening? When's that? Where am I then? It's like, yeah, it's and she gets very tired of it. I had a similar thing. I spoke to a CIO friend last week, and he was talking about just pulling out all his meeting dates for the next week, just in a simple string, giving it to an AI and saying, pretend you're an amazing executive assistant, tell me what I need to do to prepare for my meetings for the next 2 weeks. And it came out with a fantastic thing saying, you're on this podcast, read this stuff, you've got this important client meeting, learn their business model, all this. It was, it's amazing what it can do.
We had a customer that does a lot of strategy and analyzation of other businesses, business plans and coming up with their corporate strategies for the year. And so we trained a model to really learn all of those management frameworks and these strategy and planning type gurus, and trained it on that model. And they even productized their application that they use internally, and they call it the Strategic Analyzer. And so they'll key in their mission, vision, values, and talk about the key initiatives that they might be focused on, and then just tell the bot, hey, go build us a strategy. And it is amazing the output that we get. It's pretty impressive. A little scary, but pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So there'll be a lot of other businesses out there watching this, a lot of other MSPs, a lot of other partners watching this and thinking, probably going through a similar process. If you could, leave aside the competitive nature of some of the parts of our business for a moment, What are some of the key learnings that you've had from this implementation of AI that you'd advise other companies to follow? Yeah,
so the thing that I get asked all the time is, well, hey, man, aren't you concerned with security? Well, look, I'm always concerned about security, but I'm concerned about security in any cloud-based application. So if you're building this LLM tool within your own network internally, you have to secure it just like any other application that you're building internally. But the same would hold true for cloud. I would never put any information into a cloud application without some sort of 2-factor authentication and ability to monitor and manage and make sure that the right people are logging in and putting data in that model. The other thing that I would urge folks is that you have to know specifically what data is going in. This is not one of those things where you basically just upload a ton of data that you haven't really reviewed and looked at and then allow people to log in, because most people's data is unstructured and they're not really sure if it's accurate information. So the first steps in this whole process of either using or creating your own language model or utilizing some other application like Copilot or something that like we might provide is you really need to take a look at your data, make sure that your data is really more in natural language as opposed to in column or spreadsheet format, and make sure that you're telling the model the right information, because it's going to just tell you exactly what you've trained it to do. And if you give it 10 instructions and 4 of them are wrong, then you're going to get 4 instructions that are wrong. For sure.
Yeah, rubbish in, rubbish out.
Exactly.
That old one. Okay, so that's interesting. You obviously had a lot of learnings and got a lot of value already from this first implementation. Any thoughts on what's next the rest of the year? What's the next plan, the next project that you might undertake? Yeah,
so what we're seeing more and more now is all of the major, what I would call line of business applications, are starting to very much similarly do the same thing that we did early on, which is, hey, how do we put in some sort of AI engine, more focused on artificial intelligence and be able to collect the data that's already in the line of business application. I would use as an example in our industry, like how do I help give good diagnostics for a level 1, call that might come into a managed services provider. And so we're finding those types of options that are popping up in the various tool sets, the PSA tools that exist. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. Obviously, Microsoft has come out with Copilot. We're going to see people utilize Copilot more and more. As that continues to proliferate, I think people will get a better idea of how to manage this new technology and how they can best really get their data in a place that is what I would call AI friendly. And so I think we'll see a lot of that in 2024. And man, I would love to tell you what's going to happen in 2025, but I can't imagine. And I think we might just have the do my work button or read my mind.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Looking forward to it.
But it's impressive how much more efficient people are becoming because of the use of these various AI tools. And, AI's been around for a long time, but the ability to speak to it in a very natural way and it create exactly what you're asking for it's kind of next level, man.
It really is, yeah. I can only agree. One final question. I'm really struck by the money and the revenue that's already being generated by AI. It's such a nascent technology by GenAI. It really is nascent. It's the very, very early days, and yet you look at Microsoft's valuation now over $3 trillion. That's largely because of what it's done with OpenAI. It's amazing. Look at NVIDIA. That's absolutely stormed up the charts. Third most valuable company in the world right now. Absolutely incredible. Over $2 trillion, I believe, at the time of recording anyway. So there's a lot of money to be made. Looking at the channel specifically, is there a massive opportunity for the channel here as well? It's obviously a very popular and transformative technology.
Yes, and we're not experiencing that type of growth yet, but
yet.
But no, there's definitely opportunity there, and it's not just in, a research service or building a language model. It's also on the advisory side, because I get a lot of calls when they see us, in our podcasts and in our social media presence talking about AI. They're asking the question of we don't know where to begin, we don't know where to start, and can you come in and talk to our organization and tell us a little bit about what we should be focused on? So a major part of our advisory services now are centered around artificial intelligence, and we tie it into also our trend analysis, business intelligence, all of that data analytics. We've had those tools for some time. It's just getting a lot more concentrated and focused on the AI side, because people recognize, look, if my data is in a place where we can get an artificial intelligence engine, and I'll just use that as a general term, to start extrapolating information and coming to conclusions, then we can exponentially impact the staff that we have inside our organization and impact the decisions that we're making. And when you help someone do that, I truly believe there's just going to be more and more opportunity that will continue to come our way, just from a standpoint of GI, for example, but just for the channel in general. If we continue to become those subject matter experts in those technologies that continue to challenge us, I think there's going to be opportunities for money to be made.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's going to be fascinating watching it unfold as well. Well, Don, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's been awesome, and thanks for watching.